By the way, like the cat picture behind you is phenomenal.
Thank you. That's a portrait of my oldest by my youngest sibling. His name is Gomez, and the title of the work is Dark Wizard Gomez Stares into Your Soul. I did not title it.
I do feel stared. I do feel soul stared
I'm
by
so
him.
glad my work here is done.
Yeah.
He's like passed out on right directly. The heat is killing
Aww.
him. So hopefully not literally. He's fine. Um
Yeah. Yeah. My friend lives in New York and her old apartment didn't have air conditioning, but her cat is so clingy. He follows her into the bathroom and then he just like lies on the tiles and like looks sad because he's so hot. And she's like, go stand by the fan, please.
I wish he would. He is similarly clingy. Like this morning he
Yeah.
just like crawled onto my chest just to lay there before I got out of bed. And I was like, this is wonderful. But also, even with the AC on, you are 20 pounds and fluffy. Aside from that, I'm going to overheat really quickly.
I'm like, I'm sweating. I don't want to move, but I'm sweating so much.
God, yeah. They're the worst, but they're the best.
Yeah. Welcome, listener, to another episode of We've Read It at Night and the beginning of a new era. Because I don't know exactly how we're going to announce this, so I'm going to pretend that this is the announcement. Welcome. I'm so happy that we have a new, having a stroke. We have a new co-host, Caro, who has been on 2 previous episodes, Wuthering Heights and the All-Nighters Part 1. And I just had such a phenomenal time talking with you then. And so I was like, Caro should come on and we should talk for every episode. So hello, Caro. Welcome officially to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I was so flattered that you asked, and I've just been. I mean, honestly, it is just something where I was like, I had a lot of fun, and why not have fun more often? Because, honestly, I talk about this stuff all the time anyway. So why not just continue all the time?
Yeah, exactly. You know, someone who in a trapped environment too, where we have to listen to each other.
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody else runs away from me when I'm talking about I tried to explain a romance novel to my mom this weekend over the 4th of July, and I was like, it's 18 hours long in audio. It's The Windflower. It's 18 hours long in audio.
I got it from the library.
Good. It's so good. I
haven't started it yet, but I got it.
I finished it today, and I was just like, man, this is like what it's about. Honestly, I know that she's a big audio, but she's actually incredibly feral. She just this weekend, she will play her audiobooks without headphones when we're around, when she's just puttering around the kitchen. I was like, I called my sister over and I was like, look, she's listening right now. And she was, and I was like, if you need an 18-hour book, really use that Hoopla credit. And you should. I tried to sum up the plot, and she was just like, "That's great. That sounds good. That sounds nice." And I was like, "Okay, I can tell that I lost you." She'll listen, head. But I lost you at Pirates. Yeah. So
which that is where someone would get me.
Yeah.
With Pirates.
I believe it is. So, yeah, it's Pirates. It's.
I lost my mom a long time ago. For romance, I never really had my mom. I think that my mom probably did read romance. I think he said he has read romance in the 80s. So peak bodice ripper. And no longer does, and is very much convinced that everyone is the heroes from the 80s. And that is still, and was that was so, toxic. I didn't use the word toxic, but he's such a my mom likes to use the word jerk, and jerk can mean mildly unpleasant person or abusive asshole, and there's never any explanation for which one. But
fair.
Oh, they're such jerk, whatever, and will not believe that has changed at all. So
yeah, I think mine is more hell yeah, let's do jerks. And not in real life, thankfully. Her boyfriend's lovely, but I think that when I sell it on look, this person does a bad thing, it's great. She's just she did love Mila Finelli's Mafia Kings of Italy books, And that's like pure kidnapping. Like that's like kidnapping. You're trapped in a cage on a yacht.
Yeah. Yeah. He punches
I
a
love
wall to
them.
bloody his fists so that he can pretend that you've been deflowered. Yeah, classic, you know.
It's romantic. It's romantic. I think that that was really classy of him, actually.
It was actually great. That was actually so classy of him. In honor of Caro officially joining the podcast, I thought it would be fun if we did an episode on the movie whose name inspired the name of this podcast, which is It Happened One Night, the I think 1934. It's in the 30s. It's black and white. It's Clark Gable, which is that's like considered like the OG rom com. It won like a boatload of Oscars. And I had never seen like the full thing through before. Like I was obviously tangentially aware of it because like it's a classic. I was so pleasantly surprised by like just how many, I mean, and I don't know whether they originated with this, but just how many like classic rom-com and just like romance
Mm-hmm.
micro tropes and tropes seemed to originate with this film. And like, you know, I'm sure it probably wasn't like the very first to do it, but I think it definitely was like what kept all those things like in the popular consciousness, especially like the road trip romance. Like
Oh yeah.
every road trip romance I've ever read is basically just like beat for beat a different version of this story.
Oh yeah. It's an interesting movie because I feel like there are moments where you're like her dad slaps her like less than 10
Yeah.
minutes in.
And then she immediately jumps off the boat. She's like, I'm not taking that. Bye.
Which we frankly kind of need, I think, more in modern movies. Is like I feel like we don't have enough of like she's Ellie. Ellie is very she's very headstrong and but like in a way where like she's both flawed and she's also not going to take shit from people. And I feel like at the moment there have been a lot of rom-com heroines, and I feel like this is similar to like what we're seeing in books, where you're like, man, you just are like letting people talk to you like that. And I'm not saying that like that's not a flaw that can be like good for a movie, but like I would love to see more heroines who are just like, I don't give a like I'm just jumping off the boat. I'm doing what I want. Like this movie begins with her having recently eloped with King Wesley. Fantastic name. Would be a romance novel name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her dad really doesn't like this because he rightfully assumes that this guy wants her money. And she just is, even though she's wrong, even though that is a scammer, I appreciated that she was just able to be proudly wrong, jump off the boat, go on this whole, like, so and it's also, that's something that I don't think would happen in a lot of rom-coms today, is the movie beginning with her married to somebody else. She is married to somebody else for basically the entirety of this film.
Legally married to
Yes.
somebody else. Yeah.
Yes.
And her dad, so listener, like the general, if you haven't seen this movie, like go watch it. It's like so delightful. But the premise of it is that like Ellie is a rich socialite. She gets married to King Wesley. And then her dad literally kidnaps her from the courthouse. This all happens before the movie starts and like takes her to their yacht, which by the way, like seeing like a normal sized yacht really felt like a breath of fresh air. Because her dad's like super rich, but not that rich. So he's like entrapped her on the yacht. They get in a fight. She jumps off the yacht, swims away, pawns her watch, gets on a bus. And there she meets Clark Gable, who's like a down on his luck newspaper reporter. And he's like, I'll help you get to New York if you like give me the exclusive to like this whole story. And then obviously they fall for each other along the way because like who's not falling for Clark Gable on a bus, like
on a bus, chewing on a raw carrot, which she's so upset when he's like, I eat raw carrot. She's like, raw carrots.
Me sitting there with like my baby carrots and hummus, like, am I poor? Does that mean that I'm poor?
It does mean that we're poor because I also eat raw carrots. And I don't know if this is an urban legend. I know that there's an urban legend that men's undershirts stopped selling because Clark Gable is actually like when he takes his shirt off at one point in this movie, he's like not wearing an undershirt. And that was huge. I don't know if this is an urban legend, but I have heard that the scene where he's talking kind of fast and chewing a carrot was the eventual inspiration for how Bugs Bunny. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I used to do that.
That's real. Yeah. And even the like like "What's up, Doc" is like a stolen some way. Like the whole performance, basically, Clark Gable in this movie is like canonically the inspo for Bugs Bunny.
He's hot Bugs Bunny.
He's hot Bugs Bunny. And you know what? I'd fuck with Bugs Bunny too. So
He's not quite Robin Hood the Fox for me, but like
no, no,
I can see the appeal. He's very he's devil may care. He's reckless. He's intelligent. So I do see it for Bugs Bunny.
yeah. No, I'd fuck Bugs Bunny. I'd marry Robin Hood the Fox. Like, I
Yes,
don't
that's
want
fair.
Robin Hood the Fox for just one night. I want Robin Hood the Fox for a long time.
I'm actually, yeah, he's very romantic. I recently rewatched the clip from that movie where they're just like wandering around at night, and I was like, man, he really is like pulling out all the stops. No wonder we were so into him. But I was also into Clark Gable in this movie, and I feel like, okay, elephant in the room. Part of this is yes because of Rhett Butler, and that everything about Gone with the Wind is problematic and bad.
Yeah.
But it is kind of undeniable, I think, that like between this character and Rhett Butler, Clark Gable probably inspired so many romance novelists in like the very early age who probably watched
Mm-hmm.
those movies as kids. He's like the whole thing where a lot of them say that a dude is swarthy, which is also problematic.
Yeah. Tall, dark, and handsome.
Yes, he's like the prototypical actor for tall, dark, and handsome.
Yeah.
He's very like there's something about him that I think typifies a type of masculinity that also comes with, and I remember hearing this again, hate to reference Gone with the Wind, but it is so influential. There
Yeah.
is a scene in that movie where he's crying because she's like hurt or something, and I remember reading
Mm-hmm.
in one of my dorky old Hollywood movies that was like a huge thing for women as well, that they were like, oh, he's crying, he's so upset that like the woman that he loves is dying maybe. And I think that that sort of thing, as well as like the discomfort and it happened one night that he has with like realizing that he has feelings, is so like primordial.
Yeah. And he's such like it's like that combination of like he's a scoundrel, he's witty, he's a rogue, but he also covers her in his jacket and he puts up like a blanket to divide like the room when they have to share a room so that she still has privacy, and he like defends her when like there's a like creep hitting on her like on the bus, and he's doing all of these like, and like he misses the bus, like right, they meet on the first bus and then she's like, I'm gonna go get lunch at this fancy restaurant, the bus will wait for me, because she's like used to everyone waiting for her, and then she misses the bus and he misses the bus too because he's like, I'm gonna make sure that she's okay. And yeah, it's like that combination of like he's like constantly like insulting her, but his actions are like she's like, I'm hungry, and like while he's making her like a bed of hay when they're in the middle of a field, and he goes off and gets her the carrots so that she has something to eat. It's like he's like, you're spoiled, you're stupid, you're terrible, but then like he's doing the exact opposite, and it's so blueprint.
It's excellent. Oh, it is a blueprint when he's like, will you shut up? It's like so loud. And I was like, oh, but then the next move, he's like, no, I don't want you to like feel uncomfortable. And so therefore I'm going to put up this, although he won't say that's it, I'm going to put up this divider so that you're not feeling like I'm going to creep on you. But I'm also going to do a striptease essentially by
Oh
1935
yeah.
standards. Yeah. He's like
I
taking
mean,
off
like
his
full,
shoes
like
and his
honestly, like
socks.
modern,
Yeah.
modern romance too. Like he's like fully ready to take off his pants. He's like, and next would be the pants. And they stare at each other and just like scurries away.
Do you think her character, so it's a big thing in this movie that so Ellie, played by Claudette Colbert, also just a great Hollywood icon, who thought this movie was shit, by the way. She did not even show up to the Oscars when she was nominated because she thought that it was the worst movie she'd ever made. And then they
Didn't she
basically
win?
got her. Yes, she won.
It won
It
the
was the
Big
first
Five.
movie. Yeah, it won the Big Five, and only two other movies since have won the Big Five.
And isn't that like it's like The Godfather and like something, like
Not The Godfather.
what movies have won the Big Five? Is it Lord of the Rings?
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one, and then the other one is some movie else like that's like a little
Silence of the
bit later,
Lambs.
but not The Godfather. Yes, Silence of the
I looked it
Lambs,
up.
which admittedly, both of those are great.
Yeah. And you know what?
Yeah,
All great
both of
movies,
those are
but
great. All
yeah.
great movies. But I do think it's interesting that this movie is undeniably if you want to deny the romance, which how could you? That's the plot. But if you want to call it a screwball comedy, you can call it a screwball comedy. It is a rom com, and either way, comedies in general, but especially rom coms, do not get love from the Academy very often. And the fact that this was the
Yeah.
first one to win the Big Five, and they still act like they aren't shit, says a lot. Did not she did not think she was going to win because she thought it was a piece of shit movie, and they basically had to get her off this, like, she was about to board a train and they were like, you won the Oscar, and she showed up to accept it because the ceremonies were different back then, while wearing a traveling outfit, like a little two-piece suit situation.
Insane.
Yeah,
Insane. Like
yeah.
they don't take rom-com seriously, and part of that is
Mm-hmm.
misogyny, and part of it is also just like this is like a famous quote, and I cannot remember the actor, director, film person who said it, but like basically like it's a lot easier to make people cry than it is to make people laugh. Like
Mm-hmm.
genuinely making people laugh, like writing something that is genuinely funny and heartfelt is so much harder, both like to act and to write and to direct, like, and it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't get the credit.
No, and I don't know when it will at this
I don't
point,
know if it ever will.
but I don't know if it ever will. And anyways, so her marriage is not consummated. Her marriage to
Mm-hmm.
King Wesley. So the idea the dad is like, I can still get this annulled since it's not consummated. That's like a big deal that she cannot. This marriage is really, and I guess that's probably why there's like some leniency for her being married. Is like it's not a real marriage yet. And so she basically like I think I was gonna ask, did you get the vibe that she was a virgin or not? Because I feel like she was not, but she still
Hmm.
didn't seem very experienced.
I don't know that I thought about whether she was a virgin throughout the course of the book, the not the book, the movie, but I did like in that sort of last scene when the dad gets like the telegram from Montana, and like,
Mm-hmm.
Peter, which is Clark Gable's character, is like, hurry up with that annulment. I'm like, oh, they were definitely like fucking the entire
Oh yeah,
time. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
even though there's this like whole through line listener of like the walls of Jericho, which is like the blanket that he puts up to give her privacy. And then at the end, he's like, the walls of Jericho are crumbling, and they get like a trumpet, and like you just like hear it from outside their, yeah, anyway. So if she was a virgin, she was not by the end of the movie and before getting married to Clark Gable.
Yes, I agree. I felt like probably they I think I'm thinking about this because I think sex is such an important part of this movie in a way that a lot of people probably wouldn't think about, because they think
Mm-hmm.
that this is a pre-code movie, and the Hays
Yeah, that's what I
Code,
was.
yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's what I was thinking. Like the whole time, I was like, wow, like the Hays Code really took so much from us.
Even to this day, I think that like I think that there was a huge like sort of tension throughout the movie that a lot of people wouldn't expect, and that like that she hasn't slept with her current husband, and that could be a way to get out of the marriage. That people think that this is Clark Gable as her husband when they're staying at like this cabin motel situation. It's like everybody, like the divider is present. Both of them know that like this is something that could happen, even though they won't give in. And I saw it was like it reminded me a lot of like a romance novel, like the walls of Jericho are crumbling. He is basically just like them saying this man has been suffering. He has been so hard up and like waiting to just like jump on her. He's like, this is killing me. He's telling her dad. That's the crazy thing, is he's telling her dad, you need to get this annulment now because I cannot wait any longer. Like she's driving me insane. And I loved that her dad was like, hell yeah, you're good,
Yeah.
man. Go for
Go
it.
dick down my daughter.
Like, a we came a long way from that man like straight up slapping his daughter at the very beginning of the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a lover.
And yeah. And just for like like even like Ellie's like wearing like borrows his pajamas. So she's like in his pajama, and like that's a classic romance. Like, oh my God, she's wearing my shirt, she's wearing my clothes, and they're too big for her. But like, oh my God, she's so hot. Like, and she's like, when she gets changed, she like throws her chemise over the like wall of Jericho, and he's like, get that out of here. And he's just like, I am gonna nut in my pants right now.
He's losing his shit. And like, I think that that's something that like, again, that's like a really, I think, something that Clark Gable was really able to, like, I've seen a few of his other movies besides Gone with the Wind, and I feel like he was really good at sort of depicting like the fact that like men, and I think this is something that women love in romance novels.
Mm-hmm.
Women want to see, I mean, we've come a long way in terms of consent and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But women want to in these romance novels, in MF romance novels at least, they want this idea that like the hero is just like barely holding it together, is just
Mm-hmm.
like, so he like, I think that when you see a lot of older movies that are romantic, the dudes seem very stern and very like, even once they start to give in, they're like speaking their lines in a very direct, straightforward manner. And I think
Yeah.
that like Clark Gable in this movie feels very much like, you can feel how flustered he is and like how taken he is with her. I think
Yeah.
that's so charming, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And no, I mean, I was thinking about, so I literally today just finished the book, Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. So this is like very in the forefront for me. But that book is about like the manosphere and incel culture, and how like misogyny is like terrorism, and a hate crime is not taken seriously the same way that like other forms of whatever. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it. It's nonfiction. But it was so clear because like that book really like pounds into you like how much incel culture and patriarchy in general is hurting men just as much as it hurts women, and how like boys, and like how it's not incentivized to like help men, like it's incentivized to like keep them miserable because that keeps them in the community. But how a lot of that is like making them suppress their emotions and making them like you know have this like hyper masculinity. And Clark Gable is just so the opposite of that, while also being like a man with like a capital M. Like nobody can watch this movie and not be like, now that's a man. But he's also so kind. Like he's not nice necessarily all the time, but he's kind and he's honest. Like, and that is the big thing that swings like Ellie's father's opinion in his favor, is that he doesn't come, there's like a $10,000 reward for her return, and he doesn't want the reward. He just wants, it's like 39.50, because he's like, this is what I spent on like meals and like a new shirt that I lent her, and like I just like, you know what I mean, like, and he returns the $1,000 that he gets from his like newspaper guy, because like the story, because like he was gonna sell him a story and then the story didn't end up being true, and so he brings the money back. Like he's both, so like he's the man.
Yeah, and he loses his job at the beginning of this movie. He does not have a job, and that 39.50 is like the equivalent of almost $1,000 today, and the 10,000 would be, I think, the equivalent of like almost 300 grand today. So that
Yeah.
would be life-changing money for this jobless man.
Yeah.
And he gives it all up, and it's really, honestly, like it is. I think it's a very interesting contrast, because he is one of those actors where like, yeah, even like as soon as, I think like what they called him, the king of Hollywood back then, like when he walked into a room, you were like, that's the man. That's like, he's very tall, he's
Yeah.
kind of intimidating looking, like he is the type of dude where like, I almost feel like I have a lot of beef with rom-coms today, but I almost feel like a lot of, and we have a lot of great actors, whatever, disclaimer,
Mm-hmm.
not all actors, but there are a lot of popular actors today. Yeah, it's kind of like I'm thinking of, before everybody wised up about him, I'm thinking of Timothée Chalamet, where like I almost feel
Mm.
like that they were marketed with the idea that like they couldn't hurt you. Like physically,
Yeah.
you didn't feel like Timothée Chalamet was going to like, which is all a ridiculous fallacy. Any man can
Yeah.
hurt you, but
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I could take Timothy Chalamet in a fight for sure. Like I was like, I could absolutely pound that man into dust.
I know I could. I know I could. I'm very confident he could not take this. But Clark Gable like could not take in a fight. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like Clark
no.
Gable is like, no, he's tall. He's very like broad shouldered, very like I think even today, some masculinity standards have changed. Clark Gable is still like a standard of masculinity, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people. And seeing him be so sweet with her, like he carries her over his shoulder at one point. He does spank her a little bit when he does that, which was great.
Right. He carries her through the river so that she doesn't have to wade through. She doesn't have to get wet. But then he also like spanks her. And it's like that immediate, like, beautiful juxtaposition of like, he's this like down to his soul, sweet man, like kind man. And he's struggling so much.
Yes. There's like a moment around that river scene too, where like after he puts her down, after he stops carrying her, which I was also like, Claudette Colbert obviously was like a very thin little woman, but she still wasn't like just like somebody where I feel like, oh, she's nothing to carry over her shoulder. So that was impressive. But
Yeah.
but when after he puts her down, she's doing something, I forget what, and he's sort of like a ways away, and you see him sort of like look over his shoulder, and it's just like he can't help but look back at her, like he's yearning. It's so
He's
sweet. I
yearning.
loved
He's yearning.
it.
And that scene also, the river carrying scene is also because they talk about, she's like, why are you carrying me piggyback? Which is not like, he's carrying her over her shoulder, his shoulder, listener. So like she's not riding piggyback, but that's what she thinks it is. And that's what everyone in her family thinks piggyback is. And it creates this really visceral like image of like how she's been so isolated because she comes from this really rich family that like doesn't know what these like normal human family interactions really are. And that really is like Ellie's character, is that like she is also like a kind person, but she's also been very sheltered. And it's funny because her dad's whole complaint, right, about King Wesley is that he's just a money grubber, like she doesn't know, she's too sheltered, like she can't see him for what he really is. And so at the end of the movie, when she doesn't marry King, when she realizes like, oh yeah, like I don't love him the way that I thought I did, you
Mm-hmm.
On the surface it's like, oh, her dad was right. But it's funny because she doesn't find like real love with Peter until she does experience the world. And so it's like this
Mm-hmm.
interesting, you know what I mean? Like her father was the thing keeping her back, even though her father is also the one that like, makes up for it by like providing a getaway car so she can run off to marry Clark Gable. And it's this really like interesting development of Ellie, because like she starts out as this very like privileged sheltered woman, and there was a really easy like misogynistic route that could take, right, of like the spoiled rich girl. And it didn't take that. It made her a real person with like
Mm-hmm.
flaws but also like a inherently good nature.
Yeah, I would agree. It is kind of like she's a very classic, and I think she's prototypical for a lot of heroines, beyond and today. She's very like that spoiled yet
Mm-hmm.
sweet girl. Like, yeah, she
Mm-hmm.
has no idea what's going on in the world, but like once she learns, she isn't perfect. She's still a little bratty, but like in a very charming way. And I think that's yeah, I kept on thinking to myself, like as I was watching, I think the last time I watched this, I probably wasn't even that into romance novels. I was in one of my down phases.
The dark ages.
Dark Ages, before we entered the actual like pandemic Dark Ages, and I picked up a romance novel again.
Yeah.
Classic story, I think, for a lot of us. But yeah, there was, as I was, watching, I just thought to myself, like, I love this dynamic and so many. I love the self-made man, first of all, and is he self-made? I don't know. He's a reporter. He's jobless at the beginning of this movie, but he's not. He's like he's not a rich boy. And she is. I feel like this is not in favor at this moment from what I can see from a lot of people. I think that the interclass dynamic people prefer is rich boy, poor girl, like kind of that Benedict Sophie situation.
It's like a
But
Cinderella
I am
story.
always, yeah, the Cinderella. People are really, and I think there's a lot to say about like why that's big right now. I am, and I think I will always be a fan of rich girl, poor boy. I love
Mm-hmm.
the idea of, or self-made boy that's secretly a billionaire or whatever, not a billionaire, but a comfortable man who does not need to exploit people.
Yeah.
But I will I will always be a fan of that dynamic a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think that this movie really did a great job of explaining why. Like he's teaching her about the world, and she is like she really didn't need to do like a ton of personal work. She just needed to learn more in her own way. Like it's more her character development and her journey. And it's not that he's static, but his journey is falling in love, and her journey is falling in love and also learning how to be like a person, basically, you know?
Yeah. And like allowing himself to feel those feelings because he's like the man's man, right? Like we meet him, he's in a phone booth arguing with his boss, which is when he's getting fired. But there's like a bunch of like guys outside the phone booth being like, yeah, like get him, like, and he's like very clearly kind of like the top of like this pack of like, I'm assuming reporters, you know. And so it's him, and he's afraid to show weakness in front of them because when his boss fires him and hangs up on him, he like stays on the phone or pretends to give like one last like, yeah, and you're gonna regret it, like, give something back to his boss so that all the guys so he can save face. And by the end, he's like confessing that he's in love with the to his boss, and he's like saying how like the story didn't work out, and he's like so sad, and he's like telling the dad that he's in love with her, and it's like this complete like all these like multiple men where he's just fully like he doesn't care about saving face anymore. He only cares about keeping her.
And I feel like that is again like just like kind of, can you imagine also seeing that in like the 1930s where like, you know, we're really not enjoying our, some of us are not enjoying like the relationship between genders right now, but like imagine in the 1930s as a woman, you're watching this and you're like, "Oh, she's like the legit priority." Like she becomes his world, you know?
Yeah.
It's really enchanting, honestly. And a celebration of the working man because it's a Frank Capra movie and Frank Capra loved a working man. He also did Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with Jimmy
Mm.
Stewart,
Oh, I
which
love
is
Jimmy
not a
Stewart.
romance. I hate to say it, I do love a Jimmy Stewart film. Not a romance, but is seductive in that Jimmy Stewart plays a politician with actual integrity who will like basically
Mm.
all but kill himself filibustering.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, he's a word. I mean, that's the crux of the conflict at the end, right? Like Ellie confesses her love, and
Mm-hmm.
he's like, well, I can't say that I love her back because I don't have a job. Like I'm not worthy of
Mm-hmm.
her unless I, and it's like it's not that he has to be rich because this movie is very much kind of like anti-capitalist, anti-wealth hoarding in a way. Like he gives this big monologue at the beginning where he's like, rich people always think, blah blah blah, like they can solve everything with money. But the crux of the end is like he goes to sell the story and get his job back so that he can come back and finally confess his feelings to her. And by that point, like she thinks, again, the classic rom-com, like she thinks he's left and like abandoned her. And so like she goes back to her dad. And then like he realizes he's too, it's like this, it's the primordial rom-com.
It really is. And we kind of need to go back, I think, to this idea of rom coms actually having stakes and mattering. I've been really interested in why, like, you know, and I'll hold back a little bit on like my opinions on the movie because I don't think that's really relevant. But I've been interested in seeing why people are so like so in love with voicemails for Isabel. And regardless of what you think of the movie, I think that part of it is because there are stakes, there are people who behave badly. There's actually, you know, a little bit of hand going up the skirt action almost. And like I think that matters. I think that what people have been missing is like rom-coms have kind of been relegated, I think, recently to this idea that like they don't need to be good, they don't need to be intelligent, they just need to be like something that we turn to a streaming service.
Yeah.
Even though they consistently in theaters have been making money recently, like they've been doing well,
Yeah.
but they're still turned out into, it's almost like Hallmark. Everybody's okay with them being Hallmark, and there are good Hallmark movies, don't get me wrong, but a
Yeah.
lot of them are just kind of like a little bit perfunctory. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that this movie reminds me of like why they're good is because there is an actual journey and there are actual things that can go wrong. And will genuinely be miserable without each other if they don't end up in the end. Like she is like when she confesses her love, she's like crying, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then she's like at her wedding because she thinks he's rejected her. And she's like, does a toast and she's like, to the merry-go-round. Cause she's like, I'm just going to be on the merry-go-round of like fun and pleasure. And I'm not going to like have that depth that I had with Peter. Cause like I can't stand to have it with anyone but him.
Also, if we need to go back to rom-coms where there's like a wedding at stake, I think that helps. I think that like, you know, when you have like, because Mara, it's making me realize like how long it's been since I've seen one where like one of them could marry the wrong person in the end. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's something where, because marriage is supposed to be like a big deal, you know, whether or not you want to do it, that's fine. But like it is supposed to be something that like matters. And I think that we have like the idea of like, oh, I might go and I might, you know, end up with the wrong person and that'll be
Yeah.
possibly forever. That's something that we've kind of lost a little bit. And plus we don't have as many, you know, interruptions at the altar. And although Peter Clark Gable does not interrupt her at the altar, it still feels that way, you
Sadly.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Because as they're walking down the aisle, her dad's like, he didn't take the reward. He said that he loved you. You could still back out. And then, like, and she does. And she's the runaway bride. And she just takes off. And he's like, there's an escape car, like, on the other side of the house, like, waiting for you to go. Yeah. And I mean, I think it is like, I saw a video the other day just talking about how, kind of the stark difference about sort of what happened to rom-coms and how we went from like the 80s and the
Mm.
90s, like the classics, like, and regardless of whether you like these or not, but like Notting Hill, When Harry Met Sally, like all of these like sort of classic meaty rom-coms, and how we went from that to like the early 2000s, and how, and in the early 2000s like has some banger rom-coms, like I love She's the Man as much as the next person, but how there was kind of this shift of having where like the men became like players and the women became like shrews. And it's interesting because you
Mm-hmm.
could, on a, again, surface level, describe Peter and Ellie as like a player and a shrew on a very like surface level description, but they're so like complex that it doesn't end up that way, right? That's not the only image that we have of
Mm-hmm.
them. And so like the rom-coms, like where they sort of started to go downhill was that like they were lacking that sort of critical examination of like how do we look behind the mask of people, because that's what falling in love is, right? It's like looking behind
Mm-hmm.
the mask that this person puts onto the world, because we all do, to some extent, and like seeing their true nature and falling in love with their true nature.
Yeah, I agree. And like I think that everybody kind of has become, and that's, I think, again, when I think of Hallmark, and I think of Hallmark at its worst, I think that there is no mask. It's all like everybody is just this very earnest person. Any
Yeah.
misunderstandings are based on, I defend miscommunication until my dying day, but that's because when I think of miscommunication, I think of like people's real miscommunications. Like it is
Yeah.
sometimes hard to admit that you love somebody. Sometimes it's hard to admit that like something bad happened to you, but like, the miscommunication that I think people don't like is something like, you overheard me on the phone talking about how I was going to sell our Christmas tree farm, and that makes you very upset. And like, I'm not going to tell you the truth for some reason. Like, that's the kind of
Yeah.
miscommunication. Yeah, because everybody's got to be nice. Everybody's got to be
Yeah.
like, it cannot be their fault to miscommunicate.
Yeah.
And that's what I think when you talk about like the mask and like finding out who people really are. The reason why a lot of rom-coms suck right now is just because it's everybody, there is no mask because everybody has to be nice and likable the whole time. Everybody has to be, any
Mm-hmm.
flaws that they have to be so minimal. Like you would never have people bickering the way that Peter and Ellie do in this
Mm-hmm.
movie today in a really sharp way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's funny because like Peter and Ellie, like even though they're flawed, like I would say that they are likable the whole time. Like there was never a point where I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
I hate this guy. I hate this. Like she's so annoying. But they both still like make genuine mistakes that aren't just like misunderstandings. Like they make the wrong decision. Also, just like again, another creator that keeps coming up for me is this woman who does Marxist readings of Kenny Ortega's filmography. And Kenny
Mm.
Ortega, listener, is most famously the choreographer, like director of the High School Musical franchise. He also did Newsies. He also did like Disney's Descendants. And I think he's either very heavily inspired by or was potentially like a protege of like Gene Kelly or like one of
Mm-hmm.
those like golden age movie musicals, like someone who was like really influential in that space. And so he very much like that is reflected in his work. And this person is kind of like talking about like, you know, uh, very loosely paraphrasing here, but like how like he understands that like the most masculine thing that like a boy can do is like dance and sing angrily, and how like that's what like someone like Gene Kelly did. And like you think about like Gene Kelly, like he was a little guy, you know what I mean? Like he was
Mm-hmm.
not Captain America, but like
Mm-hmm.
man, he could dance, and he was like a sex symbol in that way. Like he was not,
Oh yeah.
they didn't even try to market him that way because right, because there was all these like Hollywood archetypes, and like Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert also, you know, fell into that as well as like, you know, you're going to be the girl next door and you're going to be the sex pot and you're going to be, you know, blah blah blah. And like Gene Kelly was not marketed as that, but he's like remembered by that because he's like he dances and sings to express his emotions, and it's like this really interesting like contrast of like of how men in particular have kind of lost their ability to dance and sing angrily, despite the fact like that is what makes that is like the true emotional catharsis.
Except for one Zac Efron. And the reason why Zac Efron can dance so well to this day is because Kenny Ortega basically trained him like he was in the Navy. And that is anything that you love about Zac Efron is thanks to Kenny Ortega. So I do love giving Kenny Ortega some points. I don't, maybe it was unethical. I don't know. I feel like the High School Musical set was probably like incredibly intense. But
I don't
can't
know,
argue with the
like
results.
you can't argue with the results. Yeah. Yeah, and they were secret Marxist underground films about class consciousness. The most recent one I watched was like was the about the second movie, and it was like they joined like, you know, like Troy and his friends are like the proletariat and Sharpay is the bourgeoisie, like she owns the, you know, and like Troy like loses himself because he like attempts to leave the proletariat behind and like join the bourgeoisie, and it's only when he like and like and she's like, and it does kind of lose it at the end because like the message is you can solve class warfare with, you know, a talent show, but I was like, has anyone tried a talent show?
You know, I think that's, you could argue that that's what American Idol has been. They
Yeah.
tried. And instead, the reward was like a recording contract and becoming Kelly Clarkson. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think earlier I was talking about how men have become like they are trying to frame actors as being less physically threatening. Male actors, I should say, as
Mm-hmm.
being less physically threatening. But in a way, they've kind of almost it. I agree. There's like a when you look at this movie and you look at like this man being like vulnerable and also like, you know, a member of, you know, the bourgeois, would he even be really, well, he wouldn't be, he'd be a member of the
He's a
proletariat, sorry.
proletariat.
um
Yeah.
he he's a proletariat. He and then you think about like the little sad boys of today where they don't even really like, there's not even really as much consideration of class in rom-coms anymore. I feel like everybody's kind of
Mhm.
like on an even keel.
Yeah.
You know, voicemails for Isabel. I think he was like a real estate bro. And she was like a chef, but she was doing well enough to like have an apartment by herself in San Francisco. So
Mm-hmm.
when I think about that and I think about like a lot of the other ones, it just doesn't even come into mind. And I think that kind of speaks to how you don't have as much Cinderella, you don't have as much of the, you know, kitchen boy
Yeah.
marrying a princess anymore. You know, it just,
Yeah.
it's all sort of bland, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And it, you know, it's because they don't want to talk about class. Because if they talk about class, they have to talk about how the people that own the studios and, you know, run all of our media are money grubbing wealth hoarders, which we don't have to talk about, you know, fully now. But yeah. And even you're talking about like, you know, branding men as like actors nowadays is like, they wouldn't hurt you TM. And it's funny because like there is also still that converse of like expecting, the like male body, that male actor body standard of like he's got to be like super cut and like muscular and like kind of the superhero body type that has become like more prevalent. And it's funny because when you look at Clark Gable when he's doing his striptease, like that man doesn't even have a one pack. Like that man has like a
Yep.
Michael Cera body, like
Yep.
he would be like he has the wimpy little nerd body that a lot of like movies promote. And it's so funny because you're still like, damn. Damn.
Yeah, yeah. It's all swagger. It's all swagger. It's what is it? I kind of hate on some level that mostly because people overquote it in my opinion or over reference it, but that essay that's still very well written and has good points. Like it's something like it's about how basically like I'll find it, but the bodies have become so perfect in a lot of the actors that we worship now that there's like at the same time the movies have become decidedly less sexual. Like I would genuinely say that it happened one
it's
night
like
is more sexual than a lot of movies.
It's like
Yeah.
everyone's hot but nobody's horny, or like
Yes, that
whatever,
one.
like
Yeah.
that quote. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this movie is genuinely hornier than a lot of movies
Oh
that come
my
out today,
god,
Yeah.
they have an almost kiss in the haystack, like he's
Mhm.
like fixing her like, and I was like, is like this is hotter than like anything I've watched this year. They're almost
Yes.
kiss. I don't think they even fully kiss. They never kiss on screen.
No.
We
No.
never see them kiss. And that was a bone to pick that I had because I,
Yeah.
I wanted
I
to
agree.
see them reunite when she runs
Yeah, me
off.
too.
I wanted at least like her running into his arms and then we can flash
Agreed.
forward because like we don't see them together. We never see them together after like that, after the breakup, the third act breakup.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wish we would have gotten like a 10 seconds of like them, her showing up in his apartment, but we never see them kiss.
Mhm.
They never kiss. They never do it. Like the closest they get physically is when like he's like carrying her over the river or when she like falls asleep on him when they're on the bus. And
Yeah.
yet like there's so much sex in this
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah. It's very it's like that it's got that pre-Hays code sort of like tension. It's
Yeah.
very like it could happen at any point. That like they want it. I feel like that's what's been lacking a lot recently is I don't even feel like they want it. Like I don't even think it
Yeah.
like, and it's not because it's intentional. It's not because anybody's trying to give representation for like the asexual community. It's that they don't know how to convey that people want to have sex. Like and I think that like yeah, that's been really frustrating in a lot of because
Yeah.
I want to feel like the reason why I really stick to open door books is not because I think that sex is the end all be all, but like when I just want it if I'm watching a movie or reading a book that's about allosexual people falling in love, I kind of just want to know that it will work between them because I do
Mhm.
believe that a lot of people have great connections but are not physically compatible. I want to feel
Yeah.
like that part will be okay too. And like with these two, I was like, yeah, they'll be fine. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah.
was like so desperate for her at the end that it was like I don't need to see it, but like the movie still conveyed to me that like these two are gonna rip each other's clothes off and be totally good.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know?
The walls of Jericho came down and so did their
Hard.
clothes like
Hard.
simultaneously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like I feel like there's a this part of the conversation can very easily and is often very easily like misconstrued
Mm-hmm.
to like reach the conclusion of like, well, let's just not have sex. And you right, like, because if like sex ruins the tension, then like just like don't do it. Because like there was like this tiny little voice in my brain where I was watching, and I was seeing that almost kiss in the haystack where I was like, and I was thinking back to a lot of like the more recently written romances that I've read where I was like, oh, like the sex did kind of like make me lose interest in
Mm-hmm.
because like that's when the tension stopped. And I think it's really easy to be like, okay, just like don't have the sex, just make it an uber slow burn and like that's how you
Mm-hmm.
keep the tension. And I think that's the cheater's way out. I
Mm-hmm.
think like you like the sex isn't what breaks the tension. It's the character dynamics in the writing, right? If the sex is breaking the tension for you, then like the book should have ended right there, right? If there's no more
Exactly.
tension, like just end the book once the tension stops. Yeah, and I think yeah, I think it's like this like idea that like all you have to do is like have someone take their shirt off and like that's automatically sexy when like it's
Mhm.
not. That's not what like makes things sexy.
Yeah, it's the chemistry that makes it sexy. It's like the feeling, and it's also like good writing. Like I do think that sometimes we blame, a movie not being sexy, or a book not being sexy. Well, no. Well, yeah. I mean, actually, same with books. People will say like there's no chemistry, and I'm like, in the case of a book, it's especially bad because I'm like, there's no chemistry. That's because the writing wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
But also like, and I know chemistry is subjective, but like I think that there's this combination in that movie of both the chemistry was on point, like knowing Clark Gable, it's very possible that they like not knowing Clark Gable, but knowing what I know about Clark Gable, very possible that they hooked up. Not to like cast aspersions, but that man
Yeah.
was really
That man
going
was
through
a
some
slut.
co-stars. Yeah, that
Slut
man was a big slut.
complimentary.
Yes, yes, yes. Hopefully complimentary. I've heard some
Hopefully.
stories. Yeah,
Yeah,
hopefully. But
hopefully. He was still a man in the 1930s. So like let's add a little caveat.
yeah, let's add a caveat. But I think like yes, the chemistry was there and the writing was snappy, and there just was so much focus on making you feel like these people needed to be together, but also like that wasn't quite enough. Like that they needed also
Mm-hmm.
to like grow and to like make the big moves, because I think that so many books, what you were saying, like ended there. It is because it's like, okay, you've told your story. Like, like your story was getting to where these people would hook up, and that was it. You didn't really have anything beyond that.
Yeah.
Like that's where it's sort of been painting a lot of books recently is I'm like, the reason why this was a slow burn is because really all it was them needing to hook up. And after they
Yeah.
hooked up, seriously, you didn't need to do anything else. So I think
Yeah.
that this movie sort of defines like why you need that combination of wanting them to be together, but also having the writing to give them like obstacles and
Yeah.
reasons for growth, you know?
Yeah. And this movie, like, it didn't even really have like a plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like there was an external plot. Like the plot was just these two people. 85% of the movie was these two people going from Miami to New York. And
Mm-hmm.
like that's the plot, right? And I think a lot of people like they look down on romance because romance in its barest form, and romance can have an external plot and it cannot, and I think both
Mm-hmm.
are equally valid. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
making a comment, but like romance in its barest form, right, is that the love is the plot, and so many people don't think that's enough, and I think it's because they experience so many media, like so many pieces of media that like where it's not enough. But it's
Yeah.
not because romance can't be enough, it's because like they didn't, the writer or the director or the creator didn't believe in romance enough to like let the human emotions breathe in the way that they need
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. And there's like a lot of movies. Like I think really I don't know exactly when, like, I mean, it's probably fairly, romance as a genre in film and books, like, there will always be cycles. Every genre has cycles,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, I think romance was really, whether it was a romantic drama or a rom com, it was a real foundation of, like, a long stretch of, like, golden Hollywood movies, like, there's so many, like, Roman Holiday,
Yeah.
um, Bringing Up Baby.
Roman Holiday doesn't have an HEA. That is something that I like sort of have been thinking about recently, was like how I think like rom-com books and rom-com movies are a little bit different. Like
Yeah.
a different subgenre. Like I think there are like romantic comedies and then there are comedy romances. And I think like something like Roman Holiday is a romantic comedy where it's like a comedy first, but it's not like a romance. But like that's still like one of the like I don't think anyone would argue with you that Roman Holiday isn't like one of the like best rom-coms of all time,
Yes.
even though it doesn't have an HEA. And so I what that was like a discussion that I was having where it's like, yeah, I guess like there is a difference between movie rom-coms and book rom-coms.
I would agree. And I think ultimately, I think the point is that It Happened One Night is a is what we need to sort of go back to, I think. With rom-coms, it doesn't even need to be, I'm not even asking for it to be like super sexy. I'm only asking for it to be good. And apparently that's hard. So I
No,
feel
you know what?
mean.
I am asking it to be sexy, but like sexy in the way this movie is, in which there's like
Yes.
0% sex. There's not even a kiss, but it's still freaking sexy. Like I do think if unless you are like going out of your way to write two asexual characters, which is
Yes.
totally valid, and asexual people, if they, are alloromantic, deserve to have romance stories as well. But unless you're going out of your way to make it asexual, it should be sexy. Like, because
Yeah.
sex and sex, like obviously, like emotional connection is the most important part of romance, but like sex and romance are inextricably linked, even if you're not
Yeah.
gonna go so far as to show, sex on the page or sex on the screen. And like that's totally valid if you don't. Like I've read some really great romances recently that were like completely closed door or fade to black. And
Yeah.
like that's fine, and they were great. I really enjoy. In fact, I read one. I read the Catherine Center's The Rom-Comers, where they're writing an adaptation of this movie. So
Oh, that's what that's about. Oh, cool.
yeah, it's like them working together to like write a It Happened One Night remake. And so
Aww,
like,
that's sweet.
you know,
I enjoy that. I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that like there's I will always be, and I want to make it clear. I think that closed door romances are awesome. I think that every type of romance novel, in theory, with some caveats, should exist theoretically,
as
except for
long,
some of the things.
besides like the racist one.
Yes, besides the
besides
racist ones.
besides the racist or like openly misogynistic or homophobic one, like that we're not talking
Yes,
about.
we're not talking about that. Not the ones like RWA went through a period of awarding before they collapsed. Yeah, not those. But otherwise, I think that every type of romance should exist. But I do think, like, I've read, and don't get me wrong, like, I hardly ever read closed door, but
Mm-hmm.
of course, I've read some good ones. I think that the big thing for me is indeed that sort of like, I just don't want it to be like there's no tension, and like,
Mm-hmm.
not all tension has to be sexual, but like, I do think that the tension, this, I think that a lot of writers think that like if they're not writing sexual tension, then like there should just be no tension, and that closed door
Yeah.
has to mean like everything's nice and lovely and perfect. And you
Yeah.
don't have to make it that way. And to be fair, a lot of very open door books are also now like everything's nice and lovely
Oh.
and perfect and there is no plot. And yeah, I could
There's some
vent
open door
about it for a
books where
while.
I'm like fast forwarding through the sex scenes and I'm like, I feel like such like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is boring.
Yes. I'm gonna put it out there right now. Like I've seen several books recently, both come out with different versions in which one is closed door and then one is open door, and also come with, and it's okay. I'm very
No.
torn on whether or not using just like general sex as a content warning is okay. I kind of lean towards no, because to me, if it's like consensual, what is the warning? But I know that there are some people who are, of course, it's valid, but I do kind of feel like that can be communicated that through your marketing that the book is steamy. I don't like the idea of it being a warning, basically, of
No.
it being negative. But I have also seen books by authors that are like, you can
No.
skip
No.
this page, and this page to not read the sex scenes. And I'm like, if it's not important enough for them to read it, then why is it there in the first place?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I made a video about this and it incited a lot of support and a lot of anger in the comments. But where I was just like, if your sex scene is skippable, then like why is it in there? It's like it's not, that's not even like it's writing 101. It's writing
Yeah.
101. You would never write, or you would never say about a Captain America movie, here are the timestamps for the fight scenes. You can skip them. Because the
Yeah.
fight scenes in a Captain America movie, as much as like, however you feel about them, they are instrumental to the movie. There is
Uh-huh.
something key happening in an action movie or whatever where there's a fight scene. So why are we saying that about sex scenes? Like it's like again, it's writing 101, folks. If there is a scene in your book that is not doing anything for character, plot, world building, conflict, whatever, then it shouldn't be there. Delete
Yes,
it.
yes. And that is what you're telling me. I got into what I hope was a respectful debate with an author who will not be named on Threads about this once. I really tried to be respectful to them because I love their books, and I was like, please don't hate me. But they were like, I don't think that's saying that like it's not important. And I'm like, no, if you're saying that it's skippable, I as the reader interpret it as it's not important. If I am missing something crucial by
Yeah.
skipping those pages, then I just shouldn't be reading the book. You know what I mean? Like that's just not
Yeah.
it's not, and I'm nobody's saying that you again can't. I do think like, I can understand with certain things, like certain erotic romances I'm aware of,
Mm-hmm.
will have something where it's like this scene has very dubious consent or this scene has
Right.
consensual non-consent, just so you know. That's different. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
I still don't think you should skip that, and I think maybe that's just not for you, but I appreciate that is different.
Yeah.
But just saying wholesale skip the sex scenes just because you don't like to read sex, then let's recommend you a closed door book, or maybe if you think that it's skippable, maybe you should write a closed door book, you know?
Right. Right. No, it was like I'm in like a romance book club at my local library, not to be confused with my other romance book club, which is at a local bookstore. Um,
Love
but the
it.
library
So
one,
jealous.
we read a book, but the beginning of this book, the author's note included like you can skip these chapters if you don't want the sex scenes. Like here are the sex scenes. And this book wasn't even like a particularly sexy book. Like it was like pretty like low on detail. And I literally like, and we didn't end up having a meeting that month because, like some like the host couldn't make it or whatever. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you guys better be so fucking thankful that you didn't have to listen to my spiel about how angry that made me when I read it.
Yeah.
I was like, why? Why?
Yes. I just don't get it, and it does make me feel a little bit like I don't. I'm a big believer in that nothing should be for everyone. I think that if a piece of fiction is for everyone, then it is probably worthless.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you can't enjoy it if you aren't the primary audience. There are so many movies that I have enjoyed, and I'm glad that I've enjoyed that. But I know, like, there are thankfully movies that are not made for a white woman's gaze, But like,
Yeah.
I have enjoyed them, but I'm also aware that
Yeah.
they're not for me, and I'm aware that there are references that I might have missed. I'm aware
Yeah.
that like there are cultural aspects that didn't hit for me in the same way, and that's good. That's good. My something should not be made just to please me and then
Right.
everybody else, I guess. It's impossible. It's a fool's game, and it's why we have so many bland movies that are meant to make a splash in every single international sizable box
Yeah.
office. Yeah, I think that that's something that we really need to go back to, is like, and I think that I'm sure that there are people who would watch it happen one night and be offended by aspects of it. Like, I'm sure that and that's fair. I'm sure that there are people who wouldn't like that, like, he tells her to shut up at a point and like spanks her when he's carrying her.
Yeah.
But and yes, parts of it are like, I don't think Frank Capra thought he was being controversial because people just accepted different things in the
Yeah.
1930s. But I do think this movie was probably made with the idea that, like, I mean, Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert did not like the script. I think this movie was probably made with the idea that, like, yeah, it might be kind of funky that, like, she gives up wealth and class to be with this
Yeah.
guy, and it might be kind of weird that, like, he didn't prioritize his career. But that's good. That's good. It's what makes it
Yeah.
so good. It has a
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah, right. Like it set out to say something and it said it.
Yeah.
And right, yeah, like listener, like at the end of the day, like this is still a movie from the 1930s. So there absolutely are elements of it that you're kind of like that like aren't for a modern audience. But those are, at least for me, like few and far between. Like for the most part, it is a very modern film.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never want them to remake it ever.
No.
Um
I'm sure it has, and we just haven't heard
yeah.
about it because it like flopped because nobody can fucking do.
I think that any Clark Gable, especially, I think that it would be really hard for a lot of actors to do a Clark Gable role because it was he just put so much. And again, I don't want to make it sound like Claudette Colbert wasn't great because she was, but
Yeah.
I think he was one of those early actors. I mean, he was a movie star type actor, but I think that it's kind of
Yeah.
like he's both doing a great job performing, but he was one of those actors that I can think of that's like kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio, where like you kind
Mm,
of know that there's going to be a certain aura,
mm-hmm,
regardless of how problematic the man is in real life. There is
mm-hmm.
always a certain iconic aura in both of their performances,
Yeah.
that I think would make a Clark Gable movie very difficult to remake. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think there
Um,
is like I can't think of any actor today who could even come close to like a Clark Gable esque role. And I mean, that's also like a greater, again, not within the scope of this podcast, but there is like a greater conversation to have about film and how like we don't really have like movie stars the way
mm-hmm.
that like we used to. Like there are like we don't have like a Julia Roberts or like a Meg Ryan level for like rom-coms, you know. So that also is what makes it difficult is we don't really have any juggernauts the way that Clark Gable was,
Glenn
for
Powell
better or
is
for
charming, but
worse.
he does not count. I will never let y'all tell me that Glenn Powell is the new king of rom-coms. He is a charmer. I like him. But don't
Yeah.
tell me I will die on the hill that set it up is not that good. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh,
sorry. I don't
I've
like set
never
it up.
seen it. I've never seen it. I know people like talk about how much they like it. I've never seen it. He's fine. I liked it. Like he's been in some movies that I enjoyed. He's a man. He is a mildly good-looking white man who can deliver a line with some emotion.
I have such a beef with set it up because I have a problem with the idea of going into a movie where you could have had Taye Diggs and Lucy Liu as like the main love interests, and instead you had Glenn Powell and Zoe Deutsch be like the main love story. I'm like, I wanted to see Taye Diggs and Lucy Liu fall in love. That was my thing.
It's
I was
true.
sold a bill of goods that was false. So
Oh. All right. Last thoughts on It Happened One Night.
it's great. If you love romance novels, you should watch It Happen One Night. You should also demand better of rom-coms and ask that they follow the example of this film, please.
Ask, yeah. You know what? It Happened One Night will be in the public domain in like 10 years.
Oh, and it's free with ads on YouTube right now, as well as Tubi, which is the best streaming service out there.
Very nice. Yeah, just like watch it and just notice literally just how many modern, not even just rom-coms, but like how many romance novels borrow from it. Like I started making like a
Mhm.
list of like the micro tropes. Like, no, I don't want to update my phone. Of like, on like her falling on his lap when like the bus moves, or like a gross man like falling asleep on her shoulder and so she has to go sit next to him, or like she falls asleep on
Yes.
him and is like cuddling her, and him saving her from like a creep by pretending that they're together and having to share a room,
Mm-hmm.
although unfortunately there are two beds, not one bed. But yeah, one bed probably would have been a little too scandalous for 1934. But like him like stripping in front of her and her being like turned on but also like flustered, and like her wearing his clothes, and like them making a deal and being like, this is just mercenary, like we're just in it for ourselves, and like this is just mutually beneficial, there's gonna be no feeling. Like it's so like so crispy. So many
It's so good.
things, so many like modern, like it's all. And again, like I'm not gonna attempt to claim that it originated with this movie, but it was absolutely popularized by this movie. Like
Yes.
this movie is the reason those tropes and micro tropes endure.
And when you were listing microtropes, you reminded me of one thing I did put down in my notes, which I think should really sell people on this movie. When they have the divider up and she's like very nervous, he starts singing "Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf," and I was like, "Oh, that's so hot!" Like
So
you, anytime, oh, it's so sexy. He's just teasing her, and she's like, "Oh no!" But she's not really like, "Oh no." She's like tempted. So it's great.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm afraid and turned on by the big bad wolf.
Much like many women in romance novels. Yeah.
And that's where werewolf romance, shifter romance was born. Also with this
Yeah,
movie.
Cressley Cole. Cressley Cole's werewolves owe a lot to this.
But yeah, listener, watch this movie. It was really fun that we got to do this. I've been like, oh, I should do an episode on this because it inspired the name of the podcast for a while. So I'm really glad that this was Caro's first episode. Welcome to the podcast again. We'll be back in your ear holes with a new book soon. As always, you can find the podcast at We Read It One Night on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, TikTok, wherever. Email wereaditone@gmail.com if you have a book or a topic you want us to discuss. Leave a rating and review, please. It is the easiest and free way to support the podcast, or you can buy us a coffee in the description. Yeah, Caro, where can they find you?
I'm at Difficult Woman Reads on Instagram and Threads. And my tone is pretty much the same on there. Mm-hmm. So feel free to follow me.
And you can follow me at the Allison Finch listener. Thank you so much for listening. Godspeed, comrades.